I am sure you have been following the Iran war. There are 5 questions which I think people ought to be asking but are not. Here, let us break down these questions. Question number 1: will the war end soon now that there is a ceasefire in place? The answer is no. Why do I say that? Because the parties to the conflict are not on the same page. They do not agree on the facts on the ground or the objectives of the ceasefire. Iran wants the ceasefire to include Lebanon as well, but Israel does not. The United States, of course, follows Israel. At best, this ceasefire is a temporary halt in hostilities, but whether it will hold depends on all of them coming to one common understanding as to the objectives of the ceasefire. And this is important for you and me. It tells us that the uncertainty on the ground is going to continue at least for some time. So, prudence obviously matters here. Question number 2: will things eventually go back to normal? It is not going to go back to normal. We are not going to see the old normal anymore. What we will see is the new normal. Let me tell you what I mean by this. On the 27th of February, that is one day before the launch of the attacks on Iran, Iran was a weak country. But after the Americans and the Israelis decided that they are going to bombard Iran to the Stone Ages, what happened? Iran not only withstood the attacks, but was also able to launch its own attacks on Israel as well as on American bases and facilities in the Middle East. Today, Iran is in a much stronger position, which is why it has been able to impose a blockade or block on the Strait of Hormuz. And the fact that Trump has agreed to use the 10-point plan proposed by Iran as a basis for negotiation or discussion also tells you how far Iran has gone up in terms of relative power. Some scholars actually say that Iran is the fourth most powerful state in the world today. So, Iran obviously is not going to relent, even in the negotiation. It is not going to relent, it's not going to give up its control over the region. So the Straits of Hormuz might see oil flowing through, but conditions are certainly going to be different. So those of us who are insisting that, the Straits, international law declares that, passage has to be unconditionally free, I think you might be surprised because eventually the discussions might lead to a situation where Iran might have a greater say in how the oil flows through the region. So what does it mean for all of us? It means that pragmatic positions are now relevant. We can no longer insist on being rigid on international law. Question number 3. Now that we know that this war condition might go on for a long time, it will lead to a new normal. Is Southeast Asia therefore thinking of potential opportunities? I don't think we are doing that, but it is very important. I can tell you that even during war, the economy still runs. Of course, it is transformed. Let me give you an example. When I was in Beirut, I realized that the data showed that during the war, when the civil war broke out, trade came down, but eventually it moved up. Even during the war, trade continued. A small example to show you that during war, economy doesn't stop. It's transformed, opportunities turn up. Now, in the Middle East situation today, businesses are not going to stay still. Capital is not going to stay stagnant. It has to move. It has to find some place to go. Southeast Asia, with its facilities and infrastructure in place, is very well placed. But are we doing it? Malaysia, for example, prides itself as a moderate Muslim country and a model country in the region. Are we taking advantage of these attributes to attract, businesses and universities in the region could potentially benefit by attracting them to their universities? Maybe families might want to relocate temporarily to safer places. Many countries have residency programs like Malaysia My Second Home program. Are these being used to the fullest potential? Are we thinking about it? While we focus on the risk and the downsides, it's also important to look at potential benefits. Question number 4. Could the war on Iran create tensions in Southeast Asia? I would say yes, because The war in Iran, whether we like it or not, has a sectarian component in it. Discussions are charged. There is a divide between the Arab world and the Iranians. Obviously, these discussions could impact upon the population in Southeast Asia. The governments are careful, I'm sure. Question number 5: could Southeast Asia be geopolitically affected by the crisis in the Middle East? I would say the potential is there. Why? Because the conditions on the ground there, with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, favors some countries and does not favor others. Whether we like it or not, China seems to be benefiting more from these conditions than others. If that were to be the case, the competitors of China would necessarily see it as important to exert pressures elsewhere. And the most likely places to do that would be along the Straits of Malacca and in the South China Sea. Well, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore certainly are not going to impose tolls, but pressure can be exerted on the entrances to the Straits of Malacca and perhaps even in the South China Sea. The other reason why pressures could build up is because the near continuous presence of American Navy vessels, etc., in the region, to serve the war in the Middle East, could also create tensions on the ground. So there is a potential for some tensions to build up on the ground. It could translate into problems for the states. So let me leave you with this thought. Irrespective of how the war eventually evolves, whether the ceasefire holds and the negotiations continue, what we are going to see is no longer a return to the old normal. We are going to see a new normal. A new normal means that there will be more uncertainty, more pressures. We need to adapt. Our positions cannot be rigid and dogmatic. We have to be pragmatic and see how the interests of the countries can be preserved. For businesses and individuals, opportunities I think are there. We have to see how to take advantage of it. Perhaps governments can support by measures. Maybe even at the regional level, ASEAN could do something collectively, so that it favors the businesses in Southeast Asia to take advantage of the potential opportunities. I am Dr. Ilango Karupanan, former ambassador. This is Diplomatify. Please hit the like if you like it and subscribe. Thank you very much.